Hi guys, so yeah, I am back this side. I know I said I was gonna be back in the last video and then I just took another break again. I haven't really been actively trading. No, I'm lying. I have been like trading, but not like um, on the markets charts all day, every day. I just caught a few important ones. Did catch a little one here yesterday, but I've closed all my positions here now that I had. Um, Over here, still trying to see if something happens here, but I've lifted my stuff up in case something happens today, because today is an important day, which is why I thought, okay, let me get back to this channel here and start sending out analysis again, because it's going to be very interesting to see what happens today. As you guys know, it's the Fed interest rate decision. So we were kind of expecting a 50% 50%, 0.50% rate hike. Fed Chair Powell in the last meeting was very hawkish when they were testifying in front of Congress and all of that, right? And also said that these rate hikes are going to the target rates would have to be higher and they'll have to get more aggressive because inflation isn't coming down, all of that. Which is why we then continue to see this fall down here. Let's change this color. Right. But what then happened was we had that Silicon Valley Bank crash, whatever you want to call it. And then the government stepped in again and said, okay, now we're going to make everybody whole, basically bailing out the banks now. So that's why we now have that rally. Because what they are now saying is, okay, we're going to pump more money now into this economy to save these banks, right? And now the market also assumes, because there is now basically a banking crisis, that the Fed is now going to change their stance on the Fed hikes. And they're not going to be as aggressive as Fed Chair Powell said just like a few weeks ago. So I think there is an anticipation. Okay, I've seen on a lot of these these articles and stuff on the news, etc. These pundits talking about the Fed pausing their rate hikes because of this banking thing now. I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. There was the probability here of like I said before, the 50% point hike, but that went down to 0. Now basically the market expects to take it from 4.75 to 5%, the inflation rate. So 87.8% chance that the Fed hikes it by 25 basis points. And then there's this 12.2%, some anticipating that the Fed actually pauses. I don't know what decision they're going to make, which is why I've taken profits, secured other trades, because there's several things that could potentially happen, and I'll go through what I'm going to be looking at on the charts and what the probabilities might be. I think that the Fed might hike 0.25%, right? Take it to 5%, the rates. I think they might now, try to find a common ground over there, but it's still important that they have to continue with inflation, right? I could be wrong and they could pause and then the market just rallies. Or, I know it says here 0%, but we don't know what these guys are thinking. I think there's a very slim possibility of it happening, but maybe they decide, now screw it, let's get this thing over and done with, and then hike with the 0.5%. And then perhaps after that, then pause. I don't know. We'll have to see. So I've kind of been looking at my charts. This is my normal chart, right? You guys know I look at both the regular scaling, right? It's the chart I work off mostly. But the logarithmic scaling is also important. So as you guys can see, I have my normal chart here, regular, and I have some levels. I've taken a lot of stuff out, a lot of lines and things that I had, because it was getting a bit cluttered. It's good that I actually reanalyzing to see possible scenarios here now. So I'm going to go through this, and then I want to look at the log scaling here, and it just explains, like, for instance, over here, this was an entry that I caught over here, which was paid off pretty nicely. And then also I want to have a look at the S&P 500 on the log scaling as well. I know it looks a bit busy here, but once we get to that, it might make a bit more sense. And then this is the VIX. We'll have to see what happens there as well. So, right guys, as you guys can see, this whole year we've been falling, and every time we reach this anchored VWAP, it pushed it down. Right, so what is the anchored VWAP? The anchored VWAP is the average weighted anchored value weighted average price. Sorry, I got a little bit of a porridge brain there. So it's a very useful tool. I've shown you guys before. If any of you were in the group that I used to take part in, then you would know. So I'll just start with this main one that I'm looking at from the bottom here, and I'll just to show you guys how this thing has kept the market upright. So it's acted as support here from this 2008 crash low. It's continued to act as what is this? Where are my okay, support, 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 kept all these crashes up, right? So in previous videos, we were looking at this area here where we bounced from, but I did mention that because of how strong the Fed was coming on, that we might get this pullback to maybe come and test this area here. I don't know if that's still going to happen. I'm going to look at levels that I'm going to be looking at if the market turns around for potential buy entries. But this is still, to me, an area that needs to be looked at, but that depends on the news we get later, right? All depends on what the Fed says later on. So that's the main one from that low that I'm looking at. Sorry, let me just go back to this Corona low crash, anchored VWAP, right? As you guys can see, from this low, form support, and then there's this level over here where it kind of bounced in between, support, resistance, 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 support, resistance, support. So I expect maybe this area to continue like this, right? And then that could be a potential level of support. Now, let's say there's three different scenarios, right? So let's say, for instance, they completely catch everyone off guard and decide to go ham sandwich and raise by 0.5%. Then we're going to see this thing just go down, guys. Or I don't know. I think so. I think we're going to see a meltdown, pretty sharp decline, because the banking crisis is an issue. And I think earnings season starts next month. And we might start seeing like declines in income and stuff like that, earnings, because all of these layoffs, inflation. We're going to start seeing the results of all this stuff, right? So this could be the rally now, we're breaking out and we continue going. Or this could just be a counter trend rally to gain steam for that leg down. It all depends what we hear from the Fed later on. So let's say, for instance, the Fed comes and they say, okay, right, guys, this banking crisis, blah, 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 this and that. We think we're going to pause and see what the market does and see what decision we're going to make at the next Fed meeting, right? There's a possibility of that. If that happens, then I think we're going to see a rally, man. So I'm looking at this new counter trend line over here, right? As you guys can see, we broke out of these. Let me just take these away. Let me start with these, where we had resistance, resistance, resistance. Bit of resistance here, not quite, but okay. What do we have? Resistance, 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 break of resistance. Right? We have this little trend line here, which acted as support, support. This is where we, or at least I look for entries. I'm just going over these setups so that you guys can just see how I look at the market, etc. So for instance, this inner trend line here, you always have to be careful that maybe it wants to push through. So these are those confluences I looked at over here. Is the break of the counter trend line, resistance, 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 break of resistance, comes back for retest, support, support, support area. We have this anchored VWAP from the last high. Just put it right on the high, right? Which acted as resistance, 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 support, support, resistance, support, resistance, resistance, breaks above that resistance, support. Right? You can also take an anchored VWAP, put it here on this low, added support over here, not quite in that area. Let's see if we, yeah, you know, anchored VWAP held the market up here, support, support, support. I don't want to make this chart too busy. Right? So these two anchored VWAPs are important on this level here, from the high and from this low. Right? Market continued and continued to break counter trend lines. Let's put another resistance trend line over here. You can see resistance, 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 broke resistance, tested resistance, back tested resistance now as support once, twice, thrice. Right? Let's take that away because I wasn't there at the time already. I mean, I wasn't there. I didn't have that trend line when this was happening. So there's that trend line, resistance broken, and then from support, support, support. You had this inner resistance level here. Smaller time frame just to make it more clear. Right? Resistance, 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 resistance. Broke that resistance, and then that all came together over here. Multiple confluences. You can look at some divergences. Right? Look at this low is higher than this low, right? But this low is lower than this low. You see, it's opposites. That's divergence, bullish divergence. So that's the kind of thing you should look for. These are all the confluence you start adding up. Right. I just wanted to go through these confluences, the type of things that we look for to find positions. Because I'm going to go over some levels, and then these are the kind of confluences we would look for further at these levels, right? To confirm whatever our bias might be. So now we have this support area, and we can now draw a trend line from this support to that support. Support, support. Let's lock that in there. And I've put in, let me change this color, another anchored VWAP from this low. The low on this resistance, this back test, and this retest of these previous anchored VWAPs. Right? So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that level as well. We then continued up and broke this resistance level. So we have resistance, 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 resistance. We broke that level. I did get into a bit of a day trade over here just on the retest, right? But as you guys can see, we are currently at a resistance level. Right? So if we take just our tool over here, let's maybe change the color just for now, a little darker just so you can see it. If we look to our left, we'll see that this area has previously formed resistance, support, 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 resistance, support, support, resistance, resistance. We are currently there right now, right? So that is a bit of a strong resistance level. We could break through it. We'll see. What other resistance do we have at this level? If we look at the anchored VWAP from the peak, right, formed resistance, 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 resistance. It sent the market down every other time, right? Is this now the time that we break it and now we continue up, hallelujah? Or do we get one last push down? And how far is that push going to be, right? So I said earlier, if they now come with a 50 basis point hike, right, 0.5%, then I don't know, I think we could have a meltdown. I could be wrong. Maybe an initial spike, then a meltdown, I don't know. That's one scenario. Then we must now look, okay, how far it wants to drop. We can have a look at that just now. Then there's the possibility that, okay, now let's pause, right? If that happens, then I think maybe we get a push down back to this area, right? Where we have resistance, 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 resistance. Make that like that. Right? Broke resistance, tested yes, support. Also, if you were looking at the charts yesterday, why would you have looked at an entry there? Because that broken resistance, that trend line, right, that I highlighted, let me highlight it again, combined with the trend line from these lows. then also combine a inner trend line like that. And then here would have been where you could now look for those entries. Alright, 3000 pips. I closed these over here because of this resistance level that we're at. Anyway, my point is, we could now potentially have, let's say they pause, and then the market decides, okay, quick pullback to test resistance, maybe form a double bottom on this area. This anchored VWAP from this low continues up to there. We also have a bit of a support level going here, right? So if that scenario happens, let's say the Fed pauses, then this will be my first area of interest against this counter trend line over here. With this anchored VWAP, I'll obviously look for, let's say on the hour, 2 hourly, this MFI to come down, this anchored VWAP, the hourly as well. I mean, there is the possibility that this thing still continues up today, but I'm gonna just wait until the Fed meeting, because if you look at the smaller time frame, you'll see this anchored VWAP from the low acts as resistance, right? Resistance, 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 broke resistance, testing it as support. Then we have this inner trend line here, support, 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 support. So yeah, this thing could just continue up today until the Fed, whatever the Fed decision is. I'm gonna wait until that happens, because I'm not so sure. I wouldn't sell here either. Maybe if we have a break and then something like that. But I'll just, if I were you, I'd just wait. I'm waiting. Can't tell you what to do actually, but I'm waiting. So area of interest number 1, right? That's where I would be looking at. If the Fed decides, okay, let's go with the 0.25% hike, then I think I might look at the same area, man. Because I'm kind of in between how the market might react to that, right? What we could then maybe have is, let's say, initial push up today, and then they hike, and then it pushes it down, but they only hike 2.5%. And then maybe it sends it back down into this area, right? Then I'm going to have a look at this area still, right? They said it goes up further first and then comes down. And I'd look at this area here. If it just drops from here to here, then I'd have a look over here. But if it first continues up and then drops, then this is my area number 2, right? Why is that my area number 2? What are my confluences there? My confluences there is, firstly, once again, this counter trend line, resistance, 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 broke resistance, support. Right? If I look at this trend line over here, we have support, support, resistance, resistance, breaks resistance, support. So if it continues up, we have a push into there, this could potentially offer support, and this could potentially offer support, right? And then to add to that, I would like to look for confluences with this anchored VWAP from the corona low that has acted as a bit of a support resistance level. You see resistance, 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 support, support, resistance, resistance, support. So if it continues there, that could also offer potential support. Right? On Thursday, what was the day today? Yeah, this is next week only. So we'll have to see if that happens. But if it happens today, that we have a push down, first area, maybe we get a continuation of this bullish run. So also, I started a Telegram group. It's not for any discussions or anything, but I thought I'd share these videos there as well, but with still charts, right? So you can look at this video analysis and then have the still charts there and plot it out on your chart and see what you guys agree with, what you don't agree with. Remember guys, this information isn't trading advice. It's strictly educational. I'm just showing you guys the kind of thing that that I do, right? Alright, where was I? So what I'll do is I'll send a still with these areas, the scenario over here. Alright, what else can we look at? Let's look at a logarithmic chart with our channel. From the beginning of the bull run, we have, let's go into the weekly quickly, just to point out some support areas. Right, so we have support right there, right there, and right there, right? So we have a nice strong bullish channel here. If we continue up, then we can start to navigate our path however it may move. But the reason I bring this out is just to show you guys these levels that I'm looking at. If we look at these oscillators at the bottom right, these things are overbought already. This is this stochastic, it's the RSI, weekly, overbought, divergences, these monthlies, not overbought at all actually. Daily overbought, 12 hour, 6 hour, 4 hour, 2 hour, 1 hour is on its way down, so maybe we get that push still up. But a lot of bearish signs right now at resistance. So I'd rather just be careful. I want to see what happens today and let it simmer and then, make a proper decision from there. But I just want to point out some areas, right? So we have these levels inside these channels that act as support and resistance areas. Now we can use that to look for areas of interest, support. Go down to the daily. Right, support, and then support, resistance. We close by at resistance as well. So that first scenario I was speaking about, this retest of this trend line here. Oh yeah, I forgot another confluence I wanted to show you guys in this little area was, let's go back to this chart, is our main Fibonacci. So yeah. Remember guys, you can also use this Fibonacci as support resistance areas. You can see how it reacts to them. Like for instance here, the green one, resistance, support, resistance. So yeah, I bring that up. Might get a push again there before that move. But you see over here, this entry here was also on the 50 mark. So we bounced off the 61.8 and again off the 50%. So this is how you add up your confluences. Just take that away. Don't always like all the lines. So over here, a lot of confluences. So another confluence to add here with this entry was this channel level, this dotted line here. can see it also added an extra level of support there. So if I use that channel level now, let's say we get a pause out of the Fed and we have a small pullback first, right? So let's say this is now a potential area of interest along this trend line here, right? What else are we looking for there now? We have this counter trend line of resistance. Now potential support. It tested the support here once. Does it come back down again? We'll have to see. Let's put an anchored VWAP at this low, right? That could now potentially line up here like this. Let's add another level of potential support and resistance by adding just a channel here on the inside up to there, like that. Let me make this dotted, right? What do we have? We have that also potentially acting as support in this area. Area number one, if we get a pullback, if we get a pause in the market, first a pullback, and then let's say this thing now decides to fly to this next area of resistance at this high, right? It could also want to complete this move of this Fibonacci from this low to that high, retrace extension 1, might want to push it further. So I'll send these two charts just with the logarithmic and the normal to see that on both charts I'm looking at this area and I'm looking at this area. So the video explains why I'm looking at that area. You guys can now look at the still charts and analyze yourselves, right? Another thing, if the Fed does hike 0.25, maybe we first get the rally to complete this move here, and then after the Fed, everyone comes to their senses and maybe realizes, or maybe even like the Fed's gonna have like a meeting after the decision is made, and they might say, okay, right, we're only gonna have a 0.25% rate hike now, but we're gonna raise the rate to which it is going. Right now, they're gonna raise it from 4. Let me just make sure here. Yeah, from 4.75% to 5%. But Fed might come and say, okay, right, we're just gonna hike it now 0.25, but we might want to take it to the overall rate hike to 5.5 or 5.75 or 6. Who knows? That's why I'm waiting first for that meeting to have a clear, better understanding of what might go down. Right, so that might happen at rallies, then Fed comes out and says, nah, but we're gonna still rate hike much longer, blah, 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 and then that might sour everybody's grapes, and then you might get a pullback. But then I will still look at this area again, right? But if the Fed comes off completely bully, hawkish, then I think we might have a further fall, potentially back down to this support area. If it breaks and bounces off here, then I think we have another issue at hand. But we'll have to deal with that when we get to it, because then we might be tipped into a recession. We're not into a recession yet. This has just so far been a correction in a bull market, which you can clearly see with the bull channel that we've been in. Alright? Hasn't broken the bottom, so it might as well, very well at this point, it's just a correction. And it's looking very bullish, man. All the right signs are there, counter trend lines are being broken, all of that. It's just the inflation in these things that's kind of like, might throw like, might burst our bubble, you know what I'm saying? But everything is, it's looking very bullish. Look at this beautiful retest of this resistance, retest over there, continuing up. So Right now I'm bullish, man. Continue to be bullish until I now hear what the Fed says. If the Fed comes out very hawkish, then we might have something else happen, might have a fall, who knows. But if they now, comes out and says stuff the market might like, the market will like, then these are the areas I'm looking at for potential entry. Now, let's have a look at the VIX quickly before we look at anything else. So the VIX also in this compression pattern here, man. This can either be a bull flag. I don't really know all the names of these patterns, but this triangular pattern here can either break out the bottom, sending the market up, or break out the top, sending us down again. That's what I'm looking at right now. Smaller time frames. I'm also looking at these counter trend line breaks, resistance levels, etc. We'll have to see what the Fed. It all depends on the Fed later on. Now, let's look at this S&P 500 now. Now the S&P 500 could also just now be ready to go back up, rally again, right? But let's say the Fed now says something the market doesn't like. Let me just hide some stuff here, start from the beginning. That one. I think I'll even hide these anchored VWAPs, man. You see right now we're sitting on the one from the COVID low for the S&P 500. We have this counter trend line break, right? Resistance, 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 break, support, support, support. This is a very good buy entry. All the good confluences are there. I'm just worried about the Fed because they could now break all of this and send us down. So now I'm looking at, okay, maybe we're going to continue up, but let's say, like I said now, let's say they say something the market doesn't like. What then? Now we have this channel here, held pretty well with resistance at the top, resistance, 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 resistance. I pulled the low down to the corona low, midpoint acts as support, 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 resistance, resistance, right? And then, so this midpoint could potentially act as resistance over here, right? And we also have this broken trend line over here of support, support, break support, test as resistance, could potentially move up into this resistance over there, right? So let me just make this cleaner here. Let's mark this area off in something like this. Let's say it pushes now up to there. What do we have there? We have potential resistance from this channel midpoint that has acted as resistance before, right? We have this trend line, support, support, support broken, tested as resistance, could act as potential resistance there as well. If we take, let's create a downward channel, right? So we take this high over here, link it with that high over there, and to these lows. Now we have a perfect channel here now, guys, right? Because we have one touch here, two touch here, three touch here, four touch here, right? And as you guys know my method, those of you that have been in my group before, we look at these channels and we find up and down movements, right? From the top to the bottom, to the top, to the bottom, to the top. Are we now at the top? Have we now broken this top trend line? broken now, retest again, and then sending us down. That's what the technical analysis is showing me is a possibility over here, this area. Right? Let's take anchored VWAP from the high. Also coming into this area over here. We take the Fibonacci retracement tool from this high to this low. Moving into our golden pocket area here as well. Right? Those are just some things I would say we have a look at. So we might push through and then get a drop. Let's say they do hike 0.25%. We might still get a push up and then a delayed reaction. Right? Might want to push up and then first come down. But let's say the banks and everything start crashing and the Fed say no, we must, there's no other way, we have to because of the inflation and blah blah blah. Let's say we do reject from here now, right? Where do we potentially look for support again? Well, I would say potentially at the bottom of this channel where we have previous support is at the bottom of our channel, which moves up and down, right? We have the bottom of this channel lining up over there. We have let me explain why I placed the anchored VWAP here, so that it's not just like I placed it anywhere. Let's say initially I placed it over here at the 2008 crash low, right? Now, from that low on the S&P 500 is very far away. I don't know what happens to send us down there, but maybe at some point, you know, the market just completely crashes and we get sent down there. But now what I did was, this is the way to use the anchored VWAP. What you can do is now, okay, the next, like the last touch on this anchored VWAP, support. Let's place another anchored VWAP there. And you can see it starts to now form support on the higher levels here, right? We can continue to do that. Place another one there, access support. Maybe let's use this one with broker. Let's just see how it plays out. Yeah, it's a little neater here. Support. I think for these levels of support, let me just show you guys something. Put it there, and then you can get, you see. So I placed this one on the last touch of this last anchored VWAP, and we had support, broke through the Corona crash, but it could potentially also, you know, as we move down, it could start moving up into our area over here. So I just bring that up as an extra potential level of support. How long is this video? Let me get done now. And then finally, you see, this will take us like June, you know, we're asked to fall up until June time. Let's also just add another confluence, Fibonacci retracement tool from the Corona low, back up to the top of the channel, broke past the low of the channel, bounce off the 50%, retrace, good breakdown to come and test that 61.8 perfectly. So if it does fall, guys, then I would say save all your money and look to go ham sandwich when we are here. Because what we're going to look for there further, if it does fall there, right? I would prefer it fall there, because now we don't have to worry the whole time. As it now goes up, okay, must I take profit? Can I hold? If it just falls, man, then we now know. Now we can now hold again for like a few good months. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe end of the year we get the big crash or something. But if none of that happens, and let's say this market just pushes up now, gets parabolic, then that would be an indication to me that after that push, we're gonna get the big fall. But if it acts like this, man, then we might be able to avert the recession for a bit longer. You know what I'm saying? And maybe we have that movement, and then it starts to maybe form a new channel. We'll have to see, but I personally would like to see this thing just, come down, hit these levels of support, and then the Fed pauses. Then we now know, okay, whoosh, we through. So maybe save this. I know there's a lot of lines here now, so maybe I must try and simplify it just for the stills that I'll send. I'll just highlight this as a area of interest if we fall. This is the S&P 500, right? So that's why I'm looking at that. That'll be about let's quickly see. How big was this fall? It's about 20%. This fall was also about 20%. Let's say 24%, 20%. So let's say between 20 and 25%. Yeah. So it could be a potential, from this high to here, another 23% drop. But right now it's all speculation. We'll have to see what the Fed says. If the Fed comes off hawkish, then yeah, we could be going down. But if we pause, look at these areas. And even if we do get a 0.25% rate hike, I'm kind of unsure how the market would react to that. It'll all depend on whether the market believes that, okay, this is the last hike and the next one is paused. We'll have to see what the Fed says. So, alright, I'll send these charts there in that Telegram group, right? Area of interest 1, area of interest 2, depending on the news. Area of interest 3. 4. Let's rather say area of interest 3 would be down here if it now breaks this and wants to come and retest this trend, counter trend line and the bottom of the channel. That could happen. Alright guys. Also, if you guys are interested in capital funding, I have links there in the description for FTMO. It's a prop firm. You can get access up to $400,000 to trade with. All you got to do is pass the evaluation. There's lots of prop firms, but this is the only prop firm I use currently. I have tested a few others, but I've been screwed over by some. So FTMO has so far been the benchmark. No issues there. Money comes on time, etc. So have a look at that, and then also the Telegram link will also be in the description channel, guys. Alright, have a good day.